Virtual reality has come a long way since its inception and widespread adoption in the past 5 years or so. Now people use it in their daily lives as a means of experiencing anything they want, whether in a gaming context or as a means of conveying messages. In this video, we'll talk about the concept of full dive VR and some possible limitations you should be aware of when trying to achieve such an advanced level of immersion. Full dive virtual reality is exactly what it sounds like: complete, immersive virtual reality that allows users to walk around and interact with their environments naturally. Full dive VR was a term developed for the popular anime Sword Art Online and later used by films such as Ready Player One. It's a digital virtual reality experience where one fully dives into the virtual world and remains detached from the physical reality. It would almost feel like teleporting through teleportation or lucid dreaming with full consciousness of physical everyday life. It was be like out sense of being here now with others. The Wachowskis' blockbuster movie The Matrix, which was released in 1999, introduced the concept of a simulated reality into our collective conscious. The live-action series Jonny Quest that aired back in 1996 on Cartoon Network also provided a closer depiction of full-dive virtual reality, albeit one that was neither as critically acclaimed nor financially successful as The Matrix would later become. With all these examples, are we certain that full-dive virtual reality is really possible? Looking at what's happening now, it seems possible. Over the long term, well, that's more complicated, but that's what makes it more interesting as well. There are two main approaches that VR hardware developers are using to solve positional and tracking issues. One approach is to track the space around you using a layer of cameras or sensors strategically placed around your surroundings. The other approach is to track your headset itself using internal cameras, custom sensors, and Cartesian coordinates. Both out-of-the-gate and room-scale VR tracking rely on secondary VR tracking tools to achieve a more one-to-one experience. These systems also allow you to go above and beyond the basic means of movement within a specific play area, like in a room or entire space. The exact specifications of each system vary, but all tend to attach trackers around the user's body, such as an additional controller, wristbands, straps and belts, that all combine data points into a single viewable, playable environment. A good example of this kind of system would be the HTC Vive with its Chaperone mapping system, where you can attach position tracking devices for hands and head into your virtual reality experience along with sensors built directly into the Steam VR game controllers, so as to have precise awareness of your play area at all times, should you get up from your chair without deactivating the said feature first by way of use of the exit area within Portal 2. The consumer-grade HP Reverb G2, the professional-grade Varjo VR2 Pro, and the keenly awaited Deca Gear 1 VR headset are different in that they are all high-end inside-out tracking VR headsets with multi-camera solutions. Right now, VR's quality still leaves much to be desired. Full-dive VR is something that can only be speculated on right now, as it's years too early for mass adoption of the technology in its entirety. But we are seeing a good deal of improvement, and with each increment in innovation comes the potential for more streamlined and cheaper advancements going forward. This approach is based not on the idea of making the VR user forget about their actual physical surroundings. Rather, it's focused on imitating the feel of being in a virtual space as closely as possible to one's natural environment. Simply put, full-body tracking virtual reality has been the first and only category of consumer-facing virtual reality of its kind. Though mobile-centric full-body tracking has begun to emerge in the low-end market and high-end accuracy-centric full-body tracking is now being poured into research, the general principle behind it all is still based on placing the user's movements within a virtual realm without overriding their sense of physical reality. Haptic feedback is an interesting topic when it comes down to the wide and varied applications that come with virtual reality. Haptic feedback has been around in full force lately as a result of the popularity that VR technology has gathered over the past few years. There are VR devices that are more cost-effective and more readily available in the market that would not leave one wanting more out of their experience. While biomedical haptics solutions are appealing, they seem extremely basic in comparison to the Tesla Suit prototype developed by a UK-based startup. The Tesla Suit uses electrotherapy and focuses more on mimicking actual physical sensations like wind, heat and cooling, simulating different environments, and the experience of touch. It uses muscle stimulators that are much more advanced than those seen in biomedical haptics systems. While the Tesla suit offers a higher degree of haptic feedback capabilities, it's important not to forget other options for haptics that can also make our gaming experiences feel more immersive. Companies like haptX have made great strides in creating affordable, consumer-ready VR solutions. For example, their technology focuses on textures applied to fabric instead of rigid boards to create a true sense of immersion during playtime. When considering full dive VR, we typically think of Nerve Gear or the Matrix style, dropping into a virtual world and losing sense of the physical world around us. Wherever our avatar goes and however good full body tracking and other sensory stimulations get, it still won't be a true full dive experience unless we can also feel and sense its effects in the real world. This is why there exists another approach to virtual reality known as brain-computer interface technology. For years, we've seen wearables and fitness trackers provide us with information on our heart rates, sleep patterns and physical activity levels. These gadgets measure biometrics using rather basic sensors that sit on the surface of our bodies. In contrast, a brain-computer interface is about measuring signals originating in the brain for more advanced functions such as controlling artificial limbs or navigating virtual reality environments. This technology has been explored for decades by neuroscientists and developers alike, but it was only recently that scientists started figuring out how to make the devices small enough and comfortable enough for everyday use. Unfortunately, we don't yet have the means to dive into our own brains in the same way that is done in science fiction. That said, a new area of BCI research that's showing some real results is called semi-invasive brain-computer interfacing. It's similar to invasive BCI, except it falls short of actually cutting open your head and implanting electrodes directly onto or into your brain. The most well-known example of this is by Elon Musk, who claimed he could have already brought to market a neuroscientific product capable of reading human thoughts and connecting them with machines if he had not invested his time and money in other ventures. In an interview with Wait But Why, Musk said that the primary goal of Neuralink is to help people who are dealing with spinal injuries. With that said, however, although this may be an early glimpse into what it is planned for the company's future, it does not seem like Neuralink's main line or intention is to outperform existing brain-computer interface products, because making the process invasive actually looks like a lot more stressful compared to non-invasive BCI devices, which are much more intuitive and simpler to use. Another research startup called Kernel has set out to do primarily the same thing as Neuralink and actually has been researching invasive BCI for longer than Neuralink as well. Likewise, DARPA has created a $60 million research project that is developing an intracranial electrode array to monitor and potentially control brain activity. While a full dive VR experience may never become completely invasive due to technological limitations, it's exciting to think about how this research could shape breakthroughs in non-invasive BCI for VR use eventually. Beyond all the usual improvements to graphics and the like, augmented reality is fast becoming a more exciting new addition to virtual reality. Augmented reality allows you to wrap an image around something in reality. This is akin to putting on a pair of goggles and seeing additional information, objects, or even people in real time that would not normally be visible without some sort of equipment or aid. So yes, aside from haptic integration, AR is where it's at. Achieving greater immersiveness in VR will help creators explore interpersonal relationships in virtual worlds, not just for gaming but for medical and therapeutic reasons as well. The creation of an accurate map of the entire brain with all its cellular connections would help researchers implement a reading and writing interface between computer and the mind. This technology helps paralyzed people move their limbs through signals interpreted by computer. I believe that there is more to this than meets the eye. If you thought establishing brain-computer interfaces was hard either way, imagine engineering them for full dive VR. The motor cortex is responsible for broadcasting signals to the body in order to move. And if you're using system, it must establish a way of translating virtual body motion when the user isn't actually moving at all. Otherwise, if you had hacked your senses so that everything that happened to your avatar in the virtual game also happened to you, and if you didn't have some sort of safeguard against being hurt by something happening to your avatars, then your real life could get seriously messed up. In this case, we aren't just talking about moving outside of yourself and causing damage in VR. Think of accidents that could happen with other people too, like getting bumped into or punched. All because our brains are one big network with no real boundaries. While there are those that believe that full dive VR is the be-all, end-all of immersive technology, it is important to realize that no invention is without limitations. For example, when television was initially invented, we didn't really have a lot of ways to do much else while tuning into our favorite program like surf the web or play games. Similarly, full dive VR would likely not be without flaws as well, and we should not expect commercially available FVD to come cheap as these technologies become more accessible by masses. Even though full dive allows one to escape from their current reality for anywhere from minutes up to months depending on the immersion level set in place by their chosen providers, it is worth noting that even in total immersion, one cannot necessarily hide from commercial interests of entities behind such services by choice. It's important to understand that the entire full dive VR world would be software-based. If a poorly designed or even a well-designed but rushed VR world was released, users would no doubt be exposed to bugs that could be potentially game-breaking. But as we all know, Sword Art Online is definitely not the only example of why someone might question the necessity of staying plugged into a virtual environment for too long. It is unlikely that we will be able to experience full dive VR headsets in the coming decade, although they could exist over the next 20 years. Entrepreneurs will be at the forefront of this revolution, possibly foisting implantable computer systems into human brains as early as 2030. The bioethical concerns surrounding this push for constant connectivity could prove to be a sticking point to its viability being exploited across the board. Perhaps in the next 30 to 100 years, these inherent issues surrounding connecting human and machine will have been resolved due to technological advancements alone, bringing on a revolution to rival those of steam, electricity and the internet, one that is literally going to change humanity forever.